My groom walked out of our wedding ceremony without a word. I was devastated, but weeks later, I discovered he was living with another woman. Furious, I showed up at their apartment. His new wife was horrified when I said, "You're not his first wife." "I am." I still remember the way the guests whispered, the way my mother gripped my hand so tight it hurt, and the way my world shattered in a matter of minutes. 1 second, I was standing at the altar, waiting for the love of my life to say, "I do," and the next, he was just gone. No explanation, no dramatic exit, just an empty space where my groom was supposed to be. At first, I thought something terrible had happened. A medical emergency? A panic attack? But as the minutes turned into hours, and then a full day with no word from him, reality set in. He had left me. On our wedding day. My name is Rachel, and I was supposed to be married to Daniel on a beautiful spring afternoon in Charleston, South Carolina. It was a dream wedding, white roses, candlelit tables, and over 100 guests gathered to celebrate our love. But instead, I stood alone in my wedding dress, humiliated and heartbroken, while the whispers around me grew louder. Days passed. My texts went unanswered. His phone was turned off. His apartment was cleared out. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. I cried myself to sleep every night, trying to understand why the man I loved, the man who had asked me to marry him, would just disappear. Then, weeks later, I found out the truth. One of my old college friends, Lisa, who lived in Atlanta, called me. She sounded hesitant at first, almost like she didn't want to be the one to tell me. "Rachel. I saw Daniel." My stomach dropped. "Where?" "In Buckhead. At a restaurant. With a woman. A very pregnant woman." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. "Are you sure it was him?" Lisa hesitated. I walked right past him. I said his name. He looked like he saw a ghost, and then he ran out of the restaurant with her. My hands shook as I gripped my phone. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream. Instead, I asked, "Where is he living?" Lisa sighed. I asked around. "He's in an apartment complex near Piedmont Park." With her. I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. I booked a flight that night. The next day, I stood outside their apartment building, staring at the door. I had no plan, no idea what I was going to say. My heart pounded as I knocked. The door opened a moment later, and there she was. A woman, around my age, with tired eyes and a belly that made it clear she was close to giving birth. She looked at me curiously, probably assuming I was a neighbor. I took a deep breath. Then, in the calmest voice I could manage, I said, "You're not his first wife." "I am." Her face went pale. "What?" "I was supposed to marry Daniel 2 weeks ago. He left me at the altar. And now I find out he's here with you." She stared at me, her lips trembling. Then, from behind her, I heard a voice. "Who's at the door, babe?" And just like that, there he was. Daniel. His face turned ghost white the moment he saw me. He took a step back, gripping the doorway like it was the only thing keeping him standing. I crossed my arms. "Well?" "Nothing to say." The woman, his wife, turned to him, horror spreading across her face. "Daniel, is this true?" Silence. And then, her voice turned sharper. "Daniel, is she lying?" He swallowed hard. I could see the panic in his eyes. He was cornered. There was no escaping this time. That's when she did something I didn't expect. She turned to me, her expression unreadable. "Come inside," she said. I stepped through the door, not knowing that the conversation that would follow would change everything. I stepped inside, my pulse hammering in my ears. The apartment smelled like fresh laundry and something cooking on the stove, but none of it felt warm. It felt like a lie. Daniel stood frozen near the couch, his hands clenched into fists. The woman, his other fiancée, or wife, or whoever she was, shut the door behind me. She turned slowly to face him, her voice dangerously calm. "Daniel. Talk." He opened his mouth, then closed it. He glanced at me, then back at her, like a trapped animal. I took a deep breath and turned to her. I was supposed to marry him 2 weeks ago. 100 people watched him walk away without a word. I thought something terrible happened, but now I see. I let out a bitter laugh. He wasn't scared. He wasn't lost. He was just here. The woman, who I now realized was shaking, wrapped her arms around her stomach, as if protecting her unborn child. "How long have you been with him?" I asked. Her lips parted, then pressed into a thin line. She exhaled sharply. A year. My stomach twisted. A year? Daniel flinched. He knew what that meant. I had been with Daniel for 3 years. That meant he had been living a double life for at least a year, promising me a future while building one with her. Let me get this straight, I said, my voice shaking now. You've been engaged to me, living with her, and she's pregnant. I cut myself off, a sickening thought hitting me. Is that why you left me? Because she was pregnant? Silence. Then the woman turned to him, her face dark with realization. Daniel? Still nothing. Her voice rose. Daniel? He finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean for it to happen this way. I laughed coldly. Oh, so what was your plan? To marry me, then come home to her. He rubbed his face, looking exhausted, but I had no sympathy left. The woman beside me, who still hadn't told me her name, turned to me suddenly. Come with me. I blinked. What? She didn't wait. She walked straight past Daniel and down a hallway. I followed, not sure why, but curious enough to move. She led me into a small bedroom. And then, without a word, she walked over to the closet, pulled open the door, and gestured inside. I stepped closer, and what I saw made my skin crawl. Inside the closet were 2 suitcases. One had a luggage tag with my name on it. The other had hers. My breath caught. Why do you have my suitcase? She looked at me, then at the suitcase, her face darkening with understanding. I don't. That's when I noticed something else. Sitting on a shelf above the suitcases was a stack of paperwork. My heart pounded as I reached for it. And then my world tilted. They were printed out wedding itineraries. 2 different weddings. Mine, scheduled for April 15th in Charleston. Hers, scheduled for May 20th. Right here in Atlanta. I couldn't breathe. I turned to her. She was pale, gripping the edge of the closet door like she might collapse. Then, almost in slow motion, she reached into the suitcase with her name on it. She pulled out a wedding dress. A wedding dress. She turned to me, her eyes hollow. He told me he had a work trip that weekend. I stepped back, pressing a hand to my mouth. I had been left at the altar. She had no idea she was about to be next. And Daniel had planned to marry both of us. My entire body felt cold. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. She dropped the dress on the bed and marched past me, back into the living room. I followed, my legs weak beneath me. Daniel looked up as we entered, but the moment he saw the dress in her hands, his face drained of color. Where did you get that? She laughed bitterly. Oh, you mean this? She shook the dress. You were just going to do it all over again, weren't you? Daniel took a shaky step back. I was going to tell you, I scoffed. When? After you married her too. She turned on him. What was the plan, Daniel? Run off again? Fake an emergency? Or were you just going to disappear for good? He swallowed hard, eyes darting between us. You don't understand. No, I snapped. You don't understand. You could have just told me you didn't want to get married. You could have been honest. Instead, you humiliated me, abandoned me, and lied to both of us. His other fiancée, shook her head, her face filled with pure rage. And you lied to me for a year. Told me I was the only one. Told me we were building a family. And the whole time, you were, she choked on her words. I can't believe she placed a protective hand over her stomach. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, looking frantic. I never wanted to hurt either of you. I got caught up in everything. I didn't know how to stop it. I let out a short, humorless laugh. So you were just going to marry both of us? His silence was answer enough. Then she did something I didn't expect. She turned to me, her eyes filled with something sharp. You want to make him pay for this? I blinked. What? She squared her shoulders. He tried to trap both of us in his mess. I say we show him what happens when he plays with people's lives. I stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, I smiled. Daniel thought he could run. But he had no idea that the 2 women he betrayed were about to turn his world upside down. Daniel's face twisted in panic as he looked between us. He knew, that whatever was coming next wasn't going to be good for him. I turned to his other fiancée. What's your name? She exhaled, still gripping the wedding dress in her hands. Sophia. I nodded. All right, Sophia. Let's end this. She gave me a firm nod back. And just like that, we weren't strangers anymore. We were allies. Daniel stepped forward, raising his hands like he could somehow fix this. Listen, no, Sophia's voice cut through the room like a knife. You don't get to talk. Not now. She turned to me. How do you want to do this? I thought for a moment, then smiled. Publicly. Daniel had spent over a year juggling 2 women, 2 engagements, 2 separate lives. He had been careful, deleting messages, making sure our paths never crossed. But the one thing he hadn't counted on. Us working together. While Daniel sat on the couch, gripping his head like his world was collapsing, because, well, it was, Sophia and I got to work. We gathered everything, texts, photos, receipts, even old voice messages where he promised a future to both of us. Then we drafted a carefully worded message and sent it out. To everyone. His friends. His family. His co-workers. My family. Sophia's family. The wedding guests from both of our weddings. The message was simple: to everyone who was wondering why Daniel left me at the altar 2 weeks ago, here's your answer. He was already engaged to someone else, and was planning to marry her next month. Here's the proof. We attached everything. Then, to make sure he couldn't stop the damage, we posted it everywhere. His social media accounts. Our social media accounts. Wedding forums where we had planned our weddings. Even a few online review sites where he had left glowing comments about our venues. And within minutes, his phone started blowing up. He grabbed his phone and swore under his breath. His hands were shaking as he scrolled through the flood of messages. Calls were coming in one after the other. Then, a text popped up in bold letters on his screen. Mom, Daniel. What is this? Call me. Now. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But we weren't done yet. Sophia didn't want to stay in the apartment a second longer, and honestly, neither did I. But before we left, we made sure to leave a gift for Daniel. Sophia walked into the bedroom, grabbed her wedding dress, and carefully laid it on the couch. Then, I reached into my bag, pulled out my wedding invitation, and placed it right next to it. 2 weddings. 2 lives ruined. 1 lying groom. I turned to him as he sat there, still staring at his phone like it could somehow fix everything. You could have been honest, I said quietly. You could have told me you didn't want to get married. But instead, you humiliated me. You lied to both of us. And now, everyone knows exactly what kind of man you are. Sophia, standing by the door, crossed her arms. I hope you enjoyed juggling 2 lives, Daniel. Because now you have no one. We turned and walked out the door, leaving him in the wreckage of his own making. Over the next few days, the aftermath was brutal. Daniel's boss, who had attended my wedding, saw the messages. He called Daniel in for a meeting. From what I heard later, Daniel had been angling for a promotion. Instead, he got put on probation. His family? Furious. His mother called both of us to apologize. She had no idea, and from the way she spoke, she wasn't going to let him forget it anytime soon. His friends? Half of them stopped talking to him. The other half only reached out to tell him how disgusted they were. And Sophia? She moved out within the week. Found a new place. Started fresh. She told me later that she blocked his number, changed hers, and made sure he had no way to contact her again. As for me, I spent weeks picking up the pieces of my life. But something strange happened. The more I talked to people, the more messages I got from other women, women who had dated Daniel in the past, women who had similar experiences. Apparently, this wasn't the first time Daniel had played this game. It was just the first time he got caught this badly. And from what I heard, it was the last time, too. Months later, I got a message from a mutual friend. Daniel left Atlanta, they said. No one knows where he went. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I smiled. It didn't matter where he went. He couldn't outrun what he did.